This is the CineSnob Podcast.
Hello and welcome to episode 226 of the CineSnob Podcast. I'm Jerrod Kingery.
I'm Cody Viafania.
Cody, welcome to 2022.
Yeah, we're here.
First show of 2022. How was your holidays? How were your holidays, Cody?
Not too bad, I guess. I had a little bit of time off of the old grindstone, so it was nice to take a few steps back, and was able to watch some movies, do some catch up. I set out to watch it was like December 11th, and I said I'm gonna try to watch 20 movies in 20 days, and I didn't quite get there, but I watched like 15. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not going to go into details, but the end of 2021 kicked me in the dick.
Yeah.
So I didn't catch up on any of the movies I wanted to catch up on. I believe the last movie I saw was Spider-Man Home. What the fuck is it called? Spider-Man
Far From
No
Home?
Way Home. No Way Home.
Who even knows?
And that was like 4 weeks ago, something like that. So,
Yeah.
And also, I'm relatively sure now I have Omicron.
Oh,
Just guessing from the symptoms. I'd love to get tested, but this country sucks, and there's no way to get tested easily. So the last time I got tested, I was negative, right? But the symptoms persisted, and
nevertheless,
she persisted. Omicron persisted. So, but I haven't been able to, an at-home test is impossible to find, and then this to schedule a test, I looked yesterday, and the one nearest to me, the first available appointment was Friday, literally this coming Friday,
yeah. There's I went through the same thing because I had an exposure. I was negative, but there was an urgent care clinic here that opens up their testing for the next day at midnight, and you're able to get in that way. But it's a pain. I had to find one too, and it was not easy, and it should be, and it's not.
Yeah, I don't know what it is, because I've gone to the store like CVS or whatever and seen those for months. Saw those rapid tests just sitting there.
Get giant boxes of them, yeah.
And I'm like, I should have just picked one up for shits and giggles, but I didn't think I was gonna get it, being vaccinated and careful.
Right.
But this one, I'm still not, obviously I'm not 100% that that's what's wrong. It could just be a cold. But even if it is the Omicron and it's still just a cold, I'm like, cool, great. I'm not dying in a hospital.
Right.
But I would like to fucking know,
Right.
But everything is so fucked up right now that here we are going into year 3, calendar year 3 of this shit. And
gonna be the best one yet.
Oh, for fuck's sake, man. Has it turned you off of going to the movies, like the theater?
No,
again?
I've been a couple times since. I've got sort of a pretty I have a strategy now. So I will only go under certain circumstances. One is at the Live Oak movie theater here, where it is dead all of the time, and I can have entire theaters to myself, and that's not an exaggeration. And then I saw two a couple days ago, and one of them was West Side Story, which I just went to go see in week 5 of a bombed movie. So there were 4 other people in there, and then
that's surprising there was that many people in there, by the way.
I know, yeah. And then I went to a 10:30 screening. I wanted to see No Way Home one more time, so I went to a 10:30 p.m. screening, and nobody was there on that day too. So if it looks like the theater is crowded, I'm a little iffy on it. If I know I'll have at least 4 or 5 seats in between me and the next person, I'm good now.
The screenings here, No Way Home was the last screening I went to, clearly. They've been really good about making them very spaced out. You're only the only reason you'd have to sit beside someone is if you really wanted to.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like if you're coming together, and then they put them in the theaters that have the recliners and everything, so they're even wider spaces.
Yeah.
So it's been pretty good with that. I don't know if I'm gonna try to hit Scream this week. We have a screening of Scream. I don't know if you do, but
We don't.
I'm a little worried about that one. Because the fifth Scream movie in January in the middle of a worsening pandemic, like maybe I'll skip that one. But
Well, for what it's worth, the buzz is really good so far.
is it really?
It is, yeah. Well, it's a radio silence movie, so it's the guys who made Ready or Not made this one.
Oh, okay.
So there's some like talent behind it.
I've actually, and we may have talked about this, where you never saw the Scream movies, right?
I have not seen them.
That was
no.
such a generational touchstone for me, like in high school and college. Like it was a huge deal. Like I remember seeing the first one, I think on video. No. We saw it like at a theater, me and my friends late one night, and like freaked each other out by driving through a field and shit. But then the second movie was like a huge hit. The third movie, I think I told you, has Jay and Silent Bob in it.
Yes.
As playing themselves, weirdly enough.
Yeah.
I don't remember the fourth one that much.
Yeah, I thought
anyway,
about watching the first one maybe tonight and just seeing if I'm into it, and if I am, I'll keep going, and if not, I'll whatever.
I'm curious how it plays now to someone who hadn't seen it before.
Yeah.
Because it really deconstructs the horror genre. Like it was the first movie to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really well done. At least I remember it being really well done. There's actually some really good stuff in all three of those first movies. There's a great sequence in the third movie where they're actually making a movie about the first killings or something along those lines. I can't remember what it is. And there's like a scene in a house set that's really cool because it's like the Neve Campbell's character is running through her real house, but it's a movie set. Anyway, those were really, really well done movies in the late 90s and early 2000s, but I'm curious how they play now to someone who's fresh to them.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I would like to see this. I don't know.
Well, especially if you got the Cron.
I think I have an endoscopy that day. I think it's I can't remember.
Ooh.
Yeah, I'm
You
getting
got all sorts of fun shit.
I had a
going
fucking
on.
sonogram. Not a well, they call it an ultrasound,
Yeah.
but it was a sonogram, and it's like full on like that thing on your belly, like a pregnant woman with the gel.
Mm-hmm.
And then I told my wife the worst part of it is like, so they put this gel on you, right? I don't know what it's for. I mean, I don't know what purpose it serves in the actual like sonar of it. But it's this warm gel, and then at the end they hand you some towels to clean your like belly off. I'm like, oh, this is fucking humiliating. They're like, here you go, clean yourself up, you jerk, you dirty whore. Yeah.
And then you took your money and walked out off the dresser.
Thank you. Then they told me my gallbladder has polyps, so you know.
Oh.
That's fun. But it's apparently very common, so. Anyway, that's how 2022 is going for me, so anyway, speaking of looking backward, let's go. We're going to do our top 10 movies of 2021 right now.
Yeah.
And I'm going to warn you, mine's a little truncated. So don't be. Well, it's not. I mean, there's 10 movies, but it's probably not the 10 I would have had I actually been in the space to watch some more movies.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, I don't know. I don't know what I haven't seen. I don't know whether or not it would have made this. You know, there's nothing that I was really like dying to see that I missed out on. But there may have been some like good movies in there that I didn't watch. But
yeah, I mean, for me personally, that my mad dash to the finish very little from that mad dash actually made it. I think maybe like 2 movies from the last like 20 that I watched made the list. So mine's very top heavy from the beginning of the year for sure.
Well, all right. So without further ado, let's get started.
Wow.
Made that in about 3 minutes. All right, Cody, what is your number 10 movie?
So my number 10 is a movie that I think we're being a little bit lenient here with movies. I think at least I am on some of these. And my number 10 was part of a documentary series that we covered on this show, but it's feature length, an hour and 25 minutes, which is Untold Crime and Penalties.
Yes, that is my number. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's my number 7 film. But let's go and talk about it now, since we're already discussing it.
Yeah. So again, this is part of the Untold docu-series on Netflix, which is a series of feature-length documentaries, and it tells the story of the Danbury Trashers, a minor league hockey team that was bought by a mobster for his 17-year-old son to run. And they became a bit of a fiasco that involved basically every shady character you could imagine, uber violent minor league hockey tactics. As someone who has grown up a hockey fan and been that way for a long time, this was like candy for me. It's one of the best sports documentaries I've seen in a long time. Every single character in this movie is an absolute blast. And it's just fun. Like it's just a really, like, some of the most fun I've had watching a movie all year was watching Crime and Penalties.
Yeah, it's really so the first I never watched past this one in that series. The first one is about the Malice in the Palace, which again, like Scream, it's another thing that young people don't seem to know about. I brought it up to people at work and they didn't seem to understand what I was talking about, and I can't believe that.
Wow.
But it is weird. But yeah, this was really great, and I think the thing I loved most about it is, like, none of these people are remorseful
right
about anything at all. It was a fucking great time, and they all talk about how great of a time this was. I don't remember the mobster guy's name, but like he would leave. He would like give these goons, like the hockey goons, like bags of cash for just railing on a guy, like knocking a guy out. He'd leave like $10K under the table for them. Like, here you go. And they all fucking loved it. Like nobody is regretful of anything that happened. When that guy gets out of prison, he goes and like surprises these guys, and they're fucking just bawling in love with this guy. It's so great. It's so great.
I think I told you, but they are going to make a feature film out of this story sometime within the next year or two, and I'm really curious to see if they can pull it off, because if they can, and it has the right tone, it's going to make a great movie in the right hands. So, yeah.
Okay. So that's your number 10. My number 10. This is something we discussed just last time we did a show, and it was a real debate for this movie and one other movie that I'm gonna guess is on your list, but I'm not gonna spoil it. I went with Licorice Pizza. Okay. This is something that I don't generally like the kind of plotless hangout movies, but this one just had enough charm to it that it wasn't the kind of chore that I thought it was going to be going into it. Because I initially started watching this film, it was one of the last screeners I watched, I believe. It had I had a very narrow window to watch it. It's like you had 8 hours to watch it.
Yeah.
And I turned it on, and it was pretty aimless at first, and I was wondering if it was ever going to be about anything. Turns out it's not, but there's the performances, I think, really won me over. Alana Haim is really great. What is his name? Cooper
Hoffman.
Cooper Hoffman, thank you. Is really, really great too. I love the batshit turn from Bradley Cooper as John Peters in this movie. I don't understand it. I don't know why it's there, but it's enough fun that it really won me over. And it's probably, after Boogie Nights, the only Paul Thomas Anderson movie I'd actually rewatch.
Yeah.
Just because I find him insufferably tough to break through.
Fair.
Cool. All right, you're number 8, Cody.
9.
9. I'm sorry, number 9. I'm gonna fuck this up already.
That's
Number
okay.
9.
So my number 9 is Nightmare Alley,
Okay.
directed by Guillermo del Toro. A film that is it on your list? Do we want to talk about it?
That is on my list. It's pretty high up, but
We can save it.
we can save it. So yeah, my number 9 film is a documentary. I believe it's on Hulu. It's A Summer of Soul by Questlove.
Honorable mentions for me.
Cool. It's about the Harlem Cultural Festival in 1969. That was basically shot for TV and kind of left to rot because there was I guess no TV audience allegedly would have what was the circumstances behind it? I can't remember what, but it's fully shot for TV and it was kind of lost. It was known as the Black Woodstock in Harlem. Just some really awesome performances here that are caught on camera and were lost to the ages. You have Stevie Wonder, Gladys Knight, the Fifth Dimension, which I didn't realize. I didn't realize that song. They did the Hair song, and that song I thought was from the 70s. I don't know why I thought it was from the 60s. Didn't know it was from the 60s. But
Oh yeah.
anyway, it's a really great documentary, and it's one of those things. I didn't watch the Beatles one, the Beatles Get Back, but it's along that same lines of it's footage that existed that was rescued from wherever.
Yeah.
Never really seen the light of day before, and it was put out. And there's some talking head stuff in between, but it's a really great documentary. I believe it's on Hulu right now.
Yeah, it almost made my list, but I think the thing that kept it off was just the idea that the footage itself was so great that I don't know that it took a lot of it needed a lot of effort to shape it into something, and so but the performances and everything is really great. I saw that one at Sundance and almost made the list.
Yeah, it's hard to judge these things sometimes like that. Like I don't, I have nothing against Questlove at all as a director. I mean, this was probably fairly easy to put together.
Right.
I'm not
more of an editing feat than anything else.
Yeah. It's really like a compilation. You supervise the edit as opposed to directing it.
It did. I think the thing that really makes it is that so many of the performers there are still alive and stuff.
Yeah.
And so to have the perspective of the people who performed there, looking back and seeing the footage for the first time since that day, is a great touch for sure.
Yeah. Cool. Okay. You're number 8, Cody.
So my number 8 is a movie that we haven't talked about yet. It hasn't been released theatrically, locally quite yet, but it is Cyrano. This is the adaptation of Cyrano de Bergerac, directed by Joe Wright, a director I don't normally love. I'm not a huge fan of Joe Wright. But he's done stuff like Atonement and oh man,
Attack the Block, right? Sorry, that's another guy. He did Pride and Prejudice.
Yes. Yeah.
I never saw it. Darkest Hour he did too.
Yes, yeah. And and this is a musical adaptation, but it is based off of a musical that was written by The National, the band The National. And so a lot of the songs are really great. And I was watching the movie at a screening, and I was like, I'm not a big musical person, but I'm liking these songs, and I think it was because it is, a good band that wrote the songs. But it features really great performances from Peter Dinklage. So instead of Cyrano de Bergerac having a big nose, Cyrano is a dwarf here, and that's the sort of twist on it. So it is played by Peter Dinklage, who is really great. Not the greatest singer, but gets the job done. As well as Kelvin Harrison, who has been really great in a lot of stuff lately, and Haley Bennett. And I think it's a simple story, but I think it's executed really well. It's shot beautifully. I mean, the one thing you can say about Joe Wright movies is that they look great, and I think this is no exception. And I think the ending kind of hits pretty solidly. So this one surprised me. I had no expectations for it. I almost skipped the screening of it, but I went and enjoyed it quite a bit.
Cool. I want to clarify. I was thinking of Joe Cornish.
Yes.
And his association with Edgar Wright is how I put Joe Wright together. So
Ah.
I'm not an idiot, but you know.
Well,
Yeah,
Jerry's
this is
still
one.
out.
This is well, we'll see. This is one I believe I have a screener copy of that I've really wanted to watch, and it just got lost in the shuffle of all the shit. But yeah, I was really looking forward to this one. My number 8 is kind of my traditional comic book pick, and it's Spider-Man: No Way Home. We talked about this last time. It's not perfect. It's pretty bloated, but it's kind of bulletproof. It's enjoyable in a really bulletproof way. I think that it's got its flaws. It's just so goddamn crowd pleasing, and probably the biggest crowd pleasing movie since Avengers Endgame. I don't know that there's been anything since then that's really kind of stacked up to it. What did you think about it the second time you watched it? By the way, you mentioned earlier you watched it again.
I think my thoughts didn't change. I think I may have had a little bit more fun with it in a way, but I still rank it about the same as I would have. I still think there's just so much fan service going on
that's fair.
within it, and I think it pulls away. And then again, like I said, I don't want to relitigate this, but just the actions of Peter Parker just do not make sense to me. But I mean, look, it's fun. I can see I mean, if you're a fan of this Marvel shit and you've been a fan for a long time, it's really hard not to enjoy the experience of it all. So I get it.
And I the one thing new that I did binge watch recently was the 4th season of Cobra Kai.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of the same feel to me. Like, it's full of fan service. It's full of references to terrible sequels, and it just pulls it all together. It doesn't always make sense, but it pulls it all together in a way that's like, oh yeah, that's just what I needed. It's like a really warm soup, It just hits the spot sometimes. But that is my number 8. Cody, what is your number 7 movie?
Yeah, so my number 7 is a movie I'm assuming is not on your list. I don't think you've watched it. It's Come On, Come On, directed by Mike Mills. This is a black and white movie with Joaquin Phoenix, as well as a kid named, I think his name is Woody Norman. It's got Gabby Hoffman as well. And it's sort of, there's a plot line within Come On, Come On that I don't exactly love, which is it's sort of framed as Joaquin Phoenix is like a radio NPR kind of host, doing these interviews. And in the interviews, I don't think hit as well as I want them to in the movie, but I think everything else is really fantastic, which is just this sort of like reluctant dad figure kind of thing where he's having to watch his nephew while his sister takes care of something, and he sort of doesn't know what to do but bonds. And it's a really sweet movie about like listening and he's like an audio engineer, so it's sort of that's the connective tissue there. And just a really for an actor like Joaquin Phoenix, who tends to go big a lot of the time, it's a very subtle, very nuanced performance from him that I really enjoyed, especially as a nice palate cleanser after Joker. It was nice to see him restrained and pull together like a really grounded performance. So it's a really sweet, warm movie, but it also has this like a lot of the script is about sort of like the reluctance of parenthood and the difficulties of parenthood, and I think it does so in a really honest through some really honest dialogue. So I enjoy it.
Yeah, it's one. Yeah, that's another one that's on the list, but glad to hear it's good. My number 7 is again Untold Crimes and Penalties. So Cody, what's your number 6 film?
So my number 6, funny enough, is another musical, which I did not expect because I'm not usually a musical person, which is Tick, Tick, Boom, the Lin-Manuel Miranda directed biopic about Jonathan Larson, who famously wrote Rent. And this is pre-Rent, so this has really nothing to do with Rent. It's about Larson writing his like first big breakout musical that was sort of autobiographical, and it features Andrew Garfield in a really, really good performance. I mean, looking at all of like the people who are in the running for lead actor, I think that he gives the best performance of the year in that category. He's doing a lot of singing and it's also a really complex performance. It does a lot of it's sort of the title is sort of alluding to like a ticking internal clock, and so it sort of has this relatable feeling of he's getting older and wondering like what he's doing with his life, and it's taking him forever to break into the musical world. And it's just Miranda actually directs it pretty well. There's some really great set pieces. I mean, it's in his wheelhouse, of course, but if we're talking about like, it's funny because a lot of people were really high on In the Heights this year, which was, he didn't have anything to do with that other than writing the musical. But I actually think out of those two movies, this movie is far superior. It's on Netflix right now. Again, for someone for me not super into musicals, I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I've heard a lot about this. That was what poor Andrew Garfield was out to promote when everybody kept asking about fucking Spider-Man.
Yeah.
And he had to deny when he's trying to talk about this little movie on Netflix. I guess it's not really a little movie if it's on Netflix and it's directed by Lin-Manuel Miranda, but this is another one that I missed out on, but looking forward to seeing it. My number 6 is another Netflix movie. This may be a little out of left field, but god damn it, I fucking laughed my ass off. Bad Trip. This is the Eric Andre hidden camera prank movie, you might call it, with a plot line. Mm-hmm. Also features Lil Rel Howery and Tiffany Haddish. The basic plot is Eric Andre is trying to go across country with Lil Rel in Tiffany Haddish's stolen car to meet this woman he's in love with. And there's all kinds of crazy shit that happens along the way. Very Jackass style, very Bad Grandpa style. But I think you mentioned this too, Cody, when we reviewed it. One of the best like plotted versions of this type of movie, because usually the plot is kind of falls apart and it's shitty and it doesn't really make any sense, and it's hit or miss along the way. But I think this is loaded with a lot more hits than misses. There's some real set pieces in here, some real pranks that, like, I still wonder exactly how they pulled it off. There's a great scene with Tiffany Haddish like interrogating some guy, and she shows him a picture of him with Eric Andre and Lil Rel. Like, I'm not really sure. I mean, I know it's easy how they put the picture together, but I'm just not sure how they actually pulled it off. And then there's a car crash scene that seemingly takes place in real time that I'm, again, not sure how they got spectators to fall for it without killing people involved. But yeah, this is this movie I really had a lot of fun with, and it's one of the bright spots comedy wise for me of 2021.
Yeah, great comedy.
What is your number 5 movie, Cody?
Number 5 is Language Lessons, a movie that we talked about on the show. We can, if you want to know more about it, you can go back to that episode. But it's directed by Natalie Morales. It's a mumblecore improvised movie with it's a two-hander with Natalie Morales and Mark Duplass. Essentially, she is giving him Spanish lessons over sort of Zoom. And they end up creating this like really close bond together due to a tragedy that occurs and happens. It's, we've seen a lot of pandemic era movies. We've seen a lot of stuff either utilize tech or reference the pandemic and stuff like that. And I think out of that era, there's been 2 movies that have been successful, and they've made my top 10s on each consecutive year. Last year's Host. And this year's Language Lessons, which the pandemic is not mentioned, but the whole thing takes place over Zoom screens and stuff. So, if you're looking for a quick and easy watch that's got some really great performances, and I don't know if you've ever watched if anyone out there has ever watched a Mark Duplass movie, but he has this very naturalistic acting style that I think is really played off of well by Natalie Morales here. So. This is another movie that I saw this at South by Southwest back in March, and stuck with me throughout the year.
Yeah, I still haven't watched it. I did stumble across. My wife was watching the morning show on Apple TV. She started it, and it has Mark Duplass in it. And have you seen that show?
I have not.
It's not great. It
Yeah.
reminds me of the hype around the Newsroom, the Aaron Sorkin version. It's a little too on the nose, but I was like, oh, Mark Duplass, good for him. And that was it. That's all. That's all I have about Mark Duplass.
No, I mean, good for. I mean, I agree. Good for him that he's got a good gig there.
Yeah, I mean, it's a really high profile show, but
Yeah, sharing scenes with Jennifer Aniston and stuff like
Reese Witherspoon and Billy Crudup. Billy Crudup is of course playing who you might expect him to play, but now who is it that it's like Billy Crudup and who's the other guy? Is it Guy Pearce now who like exclusively play bad guys? And you're like, when they show up in the movie, you're like, all right.
Crudup was an okay guy in the and he is playing the Flash's dad.
Oh, that's right.
I mean, I guess he's in jail, but you know.
But he got replaced by Ron.
Oh, that's right.
Fuck, who is it? What's his
Livingston?
name? From Livingston. There you go. Yeah. Anyway. Cool. Okay, my number 5 movie, and I suspect this is on your list, so I'm going to let you talk about it later, is Inside. So
Bo Burnham Inside?
yes.
That's my number 4, so let's go ahead and talk about it.
Let's go and talk about it. So yeah, this is ostensibly a stand-up comedy special is how it's billed, but this is not really a stand-up comedy special. This is very I believe early pandemic era. Oh God, Jesus, it's weird to talk about that like that. This is like early 2020. Bo Burnham in a room recording a bunch of songs. I'll let you talk about it, Cody. You're way more into this, and you've seen it more than I have. But
yeah, so it's essentially, you know, it's not exactly themed, but there are a lot of themes that are touched on throughout it. So, you know, there's themes certainly of addressing the pandemic and isolation and depression and that kind of thing. There's also a tinge, and I think some of the more interesting stuff about it is sort of a commentary on technology and the internet and that kind of thing, and especially with Burnham, you know, essentially gaining notoriety and fame from technology, you know, becoming YouTube famous before anything else, and then essentially like, you know, spending a special sort of rejecting the thing that made him famous, I think is an interesting thing. But yeah, it's you know, it's a comedy special, but it's also got some really serious stuff in it. I think that the songs are fantastic. You know, and when we talk about it being more than a comedy special, it's you know, it was, you know, written, directed, edited, shot all by him in a room. And there's like some really great filmmaking going on, like some great lighting cues, a great use of projectors, great editing. Like there's a ton of editing going on. Like this must have been so time consuming. There's so much effort on the screen. And again, in the pandemic era, you know, I don't think that there's been a better like commentary of this shared experience that everyone has had to some degree, of isolation, and which is kind of the other big theme as well.
you know, you mentioned the effort that it took to put it into. I think at the end is when he has a bunch of outtakes, and there's a shot of him like working the projector, and the whatever video he's playing ends, and you see like the Adobe Premiere timeline in there, and it just struck a chord with me because I do that like daily. I fuck with that. And it's like, fuck, that's a lot of work that went into this. One of my favorite things about this is the critical misunderstanding of a lot of stuff. And I don't know if you remember it, but like the apology song, is that what is it called?
Problematic,
where he like apologizes for his problematic behavior online, but it's entirely tongue in cheek, and it's entirely a takedown of the apology culture. But there's been plenty of like commentaries I've read that take it at face value.
I think it's both. I think that there is some authenticity behind him feeling bad about some shitty stuff he said, but I think he's also at the same time, I mean, look, he's clearly poking fun at it. Like there's literally a projection of him on the cross at some point in that thing. So there's some, but I do think that there's some authenticity. I don't think that it's entirely at face value. I think it can't be.
Yeah, but I mean, there's been a lot of misunderstanding, I think, of this, which is interesting to me because it really provoked a lot of conversation. It feels like it came out a million years ago now, so
yeah.
Forgive me for not being entirely fresh on it. But yeah, it won a bunch of Emmys too, right?
I think it won like 2. I think he won 2 Emmys.
He was nominated for a few, I know. But
yeah, he got beat by fucking Hamilton.
Oh, yes. You told me that. You were very upset about that.
Well, because Hamilton won for...
I agree. I agree with you.
Hamilton won in like 2 different categories, including... the one was like like taped special, and one was TV movie or some shit. I don't know. Whatever.
From a performance that was recorded in 2016 or something.
Yeah, of a musical that had been out for like 4 years.
All right. My number 4 movie is one that it's another Netflix movie, and it's Mitchells versus the Machines.
Okay.
An animated film produced by Lord and Miller. Who, of course, produced Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, won an Oscar for that, directed the Lego movie, produced the sequel, which wasn't as good, but a couple of my favorite directors, and I think yours too, Cody. This film it's so fun and so original. It feels like a direct sort of like it's in the same universe as Into the Spider-Verse for me. Like there's just so much originality happening, and the first from my knowledge, like big like mainstream animated film to actually feature a character, an LGBTQ character, and not have it be like some cheap cop out or some sort of stunt. This is a real LGBTQ character who it's not even that big a deal.
Right.
And it was a really, really fun movie for me. A lot of great voice acting. You have Danny McBride as the father, Maya Rudolph as the mother. You've got Eric Andre as the villain.
Got a good Beck Bennett.
And Fred Armisen as a couple of robots that can't tell the difference. Like, and there's a great joke about the dog looking like a loaf of bread. Anyway, it's a lot of fun. It's on Netflix now.
Yeah.
Anyway, Cody, what is your number 3 movie?
So it wouldn't be a list without something super depressing on my end. So my number 3 is a Netflix documentary called Procession. This is a recent documentary, and it is about these. It's like 5 or 6 men, all kind of middle-aged, between ages of like 40 and 60. From Kansas City, who were sexually abused by the Catholic Church, Catholic priests, and basically they decide to go through this kind of therapy where they like not reenact, but like they process their trauma through like filmmaking. So it's what's called like drama therapy. So in order to process everything, they kind of like construct and put together like little short films that are telling a story. And so each of them has like their own separate story. Each of them has their own sort of trauma that they're dealing with. Each of them is reacting and responding differently. And then they all help each other out by like acting in each other's films and then in turn also helping others. It's really intense, obviously, given the subject matter. But it's like it's extremely moving. It reminds me a lot of a movie that made my top 10 a few years back called The Work, where people kind of it was about these people going to Folsom Prison and acting out stuff with prisoners and doing that kind of thing. But yeah, just a really interesting movie, a really interesting way of looking at people healing and how to do that, and yeah, really, really great.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of this before, but it does seem very depressing, but
yeah,
maybe riveting as well. Okay. What was that, number 3?
3.
Okay, my number 3, and I suspect this is on your list too. My number 3 movie, another depressing one, is Mass.
Yeah, we'll save that one.
We'll save that one. All right, then. What is your number 2 movie, Cody?
My number 2 movie, and this will give it away. My number 2 movie is Coda, a movie that I saw. My top 2 movies of the year I saw at Sundance almost one exact calendar year ago, and stuck with me the rest of the year. So Coda is a movie that's on Apple TV Plus. Again, if you can go back and hear more on our thoughts about it, but it's a movie about a girl who has an entirely deaf family, and she is hearing, and she kind of serves as the the sort of translator and helps them out on their fishing boat and stuff. And but she also has this sort of passion for music and singing, and she is sort of torn on whether or not she wants to pursue a career and a life of, singing and stuff, or if she wants to hang around, and continue to help out her family who has become really dependent on her. A very big feel-goody movie. There's, it's, some of the beats are familiar. I think a criticism that I understand is maybe it's too familiar at times, but I think there's something to be said for a really great movie executed to perfection, and I think the execution here is great. Eugenio Derbez as the choir teacher, I think is really does a really great job at a supporting actor performance. Emilia Jones, who's in the lead role, I'm curious to see again this year and next year what comes from that, because it's definitely one of those like star making performances. And then Troy Kotsur, who plays your dad, also gives a great performance, who has a little bit of Oscar buzz around him, more so than anyone else in the cast. So just a really great, enjoyable movie, one that you can like recommend to like your family too. I told my mom to watch it and she loved it. So it was one of those.
That was if you're curious, this was the one that was fighting at number 10 with Licorice Pizza.
Okay.
I had a significant well, I don't want to say significantly, but I had a considerable amount of kind of resistance to the formulaic parts of it, more so than you did. I think it's a great movie, but I think that it hits a little too formulaic at times for me. But again, you're right. Great performances. Emilia Jones is great, especially knowing that she isn't she learned American Sign Language for this.
Right.
She's not a native, if you call it a native speaker. I don't know what you mean, but I don't know what that means exactly. But the idea that the rest of the cast that plays her family they're actually deaf actors.
Right.
So that's how they really legitimately communicated, was through ASL. So, it's really good. It's really feel good. Like I said, I had a few more problems with the kind of by the numbers portion of it, but I think it mostly overcomes it. Anyway, let's go to our number 2 movie, and it's a movie you had on your list earlier, Cody. Nightmare Alley. This is Guillermo del Toro doing a sort of film noir thing. Again, we talked about this last episode. The fucking 20th or Searchlight Pictures released it against Spider-Man No Way Home, and it got destroyed. But easily the most accessible Guillermo del Toro movie, I think, ever. Features Bradley Cooper as sort of a con man huckster guy that falls, kind of gets in over his head, first at a carnival and then doing his own act. Just really, really well done. You mentioned how good it looks.
Mm-hmm.
I think it just has a really, really great feel to it. Like, this is the kind of movie I mentioned last time that Tim Burton wishes he could make.
Mm-hmm.
This is like in 1990, Tim Burton could have made this movie. In 2021, Tim Burton would be struggling to make this a film that's good. Just really, really great performances from Bradley Cooper. David Strathairn is really great. Richard Jenkins I like a lot in this role as sort of this aggrieved husband, scumbag guy. Cate Blanchett, her character is a little thinly drawn, I think, but I didn't quite get her motivation. But I think it works anyway.
Yeah.
The second half of the movie is a little less interesting, I think, than the first half. But
And that's exactly why I had it at number 9 and not higher. I think had the second half of the movie been as strong as the first half, which I think the first half I would put up, you know, with anything in my top 5. I think it's just a fantastic start of the movie, with the exception of like the very end, which is again like the best ending of a movie all year for sure.
Another great. Also, I forgot to. Willem Dafoe is really great in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
It's just a bunch of great performances. But yeah, it got buried at the box office. So
Yeah.
sorry, Guillermo. Anyway, number 1 movie, Cody. What's your number 1?
So my
I think
number
we figured it out, but
yeah, we deduction. Mass as my number 1. Again, like I said, a movie I saw with at Sundance in January, and quite honestly have not stopped thinking about it since. As you mentioned before, uber depressing. The story of two parents of a school shooter meeting two parents of a victim, of one of the victims, gathering in a room to try and get answers. The parents of the child who died is trying. The victim, I guess I should say, trying to, just sort of make sense and wrap their heads around how this could have happened, and then the parents of the shooter trying to reconcile the kid that they knew and the kid that they raised with the person who committed the terrible act. It's just quite simply an acting clinic. I mean, 4 of the best performances you'll see all year. Jason Isaacs, I think, is the standout for me, who plays the father of the victim. Also, Ann Dowd is getting a lot of buzz, Oscar buzz, playing the mother of the shooter, and then Martha Plimpton and Reed Birney, respectively, also really give fantastic performances. One of those movies that feels entirely like a play, but I think makes a good use of its space, and I think, justifies its existence as a film. Just completely gripping, completely captivating, hard to look away from. It does have that little bit of a slow start to it. The first 10 minutes or so are kind of slow, but once sort of the air comes out of the room, it's like no exhaling for the rest of the movie. And it's just so good. And by the way, I should say too, a debut film and a debut script from Fran Kranz, the writer and director, makes this especially impressive.
Yeah, from a bunch of Joss Whedon stuff. I think he's in. Was he in Cabin in the Woods?
Yeah, he's a stoner in Cabin in the Woods.
My one complaint about the movie, and we talked about this months ago when we talked about it, the way it holds its cards close to the vest at the beginning, and it kind of teases what's happening. Like something clearly has happened, and it doesn't reveal it until, I mean, it's a good 20, 30 minutes into the film.
I think about closer to 20, probably 15, 20.
I can't remember exactly, but that's the one problem I have with it. I love the simplicity of it, and like the little gestures, like Ann Dowd's character brings flowers or something to Martha Plimpton's character, and just the, even like the coat Jason Isaacs is wearing, like it's a real person's coat. There's this British actor playing this American in the Northeast or wherever they're supposed to be. Just really, really great performances all around. I don't think it hits a false note anywhere in the performances. There's a little bit of some arty stuff that I don't quite understand. Like there's a couple of shots of like a field I don't quite get, but I think all in all, really, really great, really powerful, and really depressing at the same time. A great pick for that one. My number 1 movie is a documentary, so it's called, but it's really more of a taped performance, and it's Derek DelGaudio's In and of Itself.
This was I was wrestling with this and Crime and Penalties for my number 10, and this just barely. I in fact I almost tied them, but it just missed the cut. Yeah. So
every now and then one of these things comes along that just fucking hits me right in the gut, and I can't stop thinking about it. And this is one of them. It's they call it a documentary. I don't really know why it's called a documentary. Directed by Frank Oz, but this is a one-man show from Derek Del Guardio, who's like I think it's fair to call him a magician.
Yeah.
It's really what it is. He's a magician, but it's so much more than a magic show. It's sort of this like what would you call it? Like an exhibition of skills, and then like this sort of life, like reaffirming positive vibe stage show that uses stuff that's normally used for nefarious purposes or sort of disingenuous purposes. Things like hot reading, that psychics, these fake ass psychics use. But it ends up really reaffirming the audience and turning them into kind of, blubbering idiots crying about, whatever. But goddamn, it's so well done. And it's executed. And like just thinking about the effort that goes into performing this show night after night is kind of mind boggling. Because there's either a shitload of memorization going on, or there's a shitload of like communication going on between a crew, and just the mashing up of people and the occupations that they choose, or not occupations, but like personalities, I guess is what you would call it. And then the way that a certain set piece is executed, where someone receives a letter from one of their family members while they're at the show. I mean, it's just the effort behind this thing is amazing to me. And it's one of those things that really stuck with me ever since I watched it. I made my wife watch it too, and she wasn't quite as moved by it as I was, but man, it just really, really hit home for me.
Yeah, it's really great. And I think I think one of the things about it is that it sort of it's one of those rare things that like turns the show on the audience in a very specific way. And again, it sort of like captures the magic of the performance really well. And I think that, that's the most impressive feat that it pulls off. It's like, it's sort of, if you take the sort of fly on the wall approach to it, and watch what's happening to other people, it's sort of like a vicarious experience. And it's certainly moving vicariously. So,
yeah. It's available on Hulu. I can't recommend it enough. I mean, it's just, it's again, like you said, with other stuff, like with Mass, it just stuck with me ever since I watched it. Anyway, that's it for our top 10, Cody. Man, it was tough for me to put a list together. I mean, not that the stuff at the top was ever really going to change, but like getting that filled in it's another difficult year for film watching. I felt like it was going to be back to normal, and then here we are. So.
Yeah, and the funny thing about it is I don't know where it's going. I have no idea if this year's going to be better or worse. I truly no clue.
I don't know either. We'll see. All right. Anyway, we do have one movie to review this week. So let's go ahead and move on to that.
Here are this week's reviews.
This week we've got the 355.
Looks like she's armed. Closing in on the target.
I'll take care of her. You monitor the back.
Copy that.
Tenemos una va. Pasando lista. Pasando lista ya. Va. Pasando lista. Uno.
So I don't know anything about this movie other than it's a I guess a female-led spy thriller. Director Simon Kinberg. I see Jessica Chastain, Lupita Nyong'o. Who else
Diane
is in
Kruger.
this? Diane Kruger.
Penelope Cruz.
Okay.
And Fan Bingbing.
Okay, Cody, you saw this. I didn't. Tell us about the 355 and what you thought of it.
Well, I don't have much to say because it is, as you might expect. So look, any movie that was born on the set of X-Men Dark Phoenix, where a lot of bad ideas were happening, and that's what happened. I guess Chastain pitched this movie to Kinberg on the set of that movie. And it is just a very, very generic spy movie. And like all generic spy movies, it centers around a doodat that is just some fucking decryptor drive that decrypts anything in the world.
A MacGuffin, you mean?
Yes, it is a MacGuffin, and it is a MacGuffin that from the start to finish, it's all about this MacGuffin, and it's all about this drive that they're trying to get. So the drive keeps on changing hands, and basically, all of the women in the movie are members of the agents, like an agency. Like Chastain is CIA, Lupita Nyong'o is MI6, Diane Kruger is like a German intelligence officer, and same with everyone else. And so they're all chasing the drive. And then they all converge, and then they lose it, and then they all have to team up together to try and do it, and then they have to go off the grid because in every shitty spy movie, you have to go rogue, and so this team of women goes rogue, and they try to get the drive back. So. I think it's really trying to be sort of like a Bourne kind of thing, a Jason Bourne type movie, and it ends up being just sort of like this very generic teaming up spy movie. There's a couple of interesting, I guess, action sequences, but it's just chock full of like the worst, people not getting along dialogue. Penelope Cruz plays like she's a member of the intelligence agency, but she's a psychologist, and she mentions that she's a psychologist no less than like 15 times in the movie, just consistently reminding, like as if the audience is going to forget. Oh wait, she probably doesn't like guns because she's a psychologist, and she's not a field agent, and it reminds us of that 20 times.
That's like every Jack Ryan movie. He's an analyst. He's not a field agent.
Yeah.
And every Mission Impossible movie also has a MacGuffin too, but they do this much, much better.
Yeah, and it's just and then you get like some like a weird performance that totally misuses like Sebastian Stan, and so whatever, man. I saw someone I was browsing through reviews and saw someone said that they watched the movie earlier that day but couldn't tell you a damn thing about it. and it's I very much empathize with that experience. It's just not engaging. It's got a handful of okay action sequences. It's got some really shitty green screen compositing towards the end of the movie. I don't think that anyone's having a lot of fun here. And it's about what you would expect from a January.
I'm reading that it was delayed from January 2021. So they just delayed it from a year. Like, we're going to release this in January because fuck this movie.
Yeah.
I'm curious. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, it's just super generic,
I'm curious about that strategy right now during the pandemic, because the idea behind dumping it in January is there's not a lot there in the theater that's new. Mm-hmm. So someone will probably go see it. But like doing that now, I don't get. Because like you got to really want to go to the movie theater.
Well, I think this movie is just being dumped. I don't really think that they're expecting anything from it. You know what I mean? Because the thing about the January movie, even with that strategy, is that nothing there is really going to make a ton of money either. because people are still making the choice to go see these Oscar type movies at the theater as well. So there's that's the real competition there. So the January movies typically don't make a lot of money either. So I don't get it. I don't understand. I don't know, man.
Looks like it's a Universal movie. I'm surprised it didn't get shunted to Peacock.
Oh, this feels like a Peacock movie for sure. This feels like a streamer.
What was on? Oh, Halloween Kills debuted on Peacock. I never watched that.
I didn't either.
Surprised they don't do that more often. But anyway, so what's your grade for the 355, Cody?
I'm giving it a C minus.
C minus. Wow.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's going to do it for this week. Next time, who knows?
We'll see.
Let's see what happens with Scream.
We'll see what happens.
Anyway, if you want to reach us, you can email us at podcast@cinesnob.net. You can find us on Twitter at CineSnob, Facebook, CineSnob Critic, YouTube.com/CineSnob. Sorry, I think that's Facebook is CineSnobNet also. I don't remember.
I can't remember.
Whatever. YouTube.com/CineSnob. Cody, anything else?
No, I don't think so. I think it's good to be back. We had a little bit of a break, and January is usually a bit of a grind. So we'll be here when we can. But I'm excited to turn the new leaf. I'll have Sundance in a couple of weeks, so which recently just turned entirely digital.
Oh yes.
So I'm sure I'll have some coverage from Sundance as well.
Oh, also congratulations to our erstwhile colleague Jocelyn.
Oh yeah,
for having another baby.
Yeah.
God bless her for having 2 young children already.
Yeah.
They're like just over a year apart, which is kind of crazy to me, but hey, good for her.
God bless.
Yeah. If she watches this,
she does.
Yay, hooray. I know. All right. On that note, I'm Jerrod Kingery.
I'm Cody Villafana.
Thank you for listening to the CineSnob Podcast. To read reviews, interviews, and more, visit CineSnob.net. See you next week.